not show their screen. I was trying to hide it. And I have to read a few little blurbs here. So welcome everyone for joining the City of Kingston's Live Well Kingston Commission. I'm Emily Flynn, the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston, and I'm be hosting this virtual meeting tonight. Before we begin, just a reminder that if you're not talking, to mute yourself. Let's see, as the organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone. State your name clearly if we have any audio listeners. I don't see anyone calling in today, but if anybody joins, just good practice to say Emily and then say your comment. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting and eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. And I'll call this meeting to order at 4:04. And now I just want to quickly do a round of introductions so we all know who's in the room. And then we'll quickly go to the meeting notes and then to our presentation. So I'll kick us off again. So I just said, I'm Emily Flynn, the Director of Health and Wellness. I think that's all I'll do to introduce myself. My pronouns are she, her. Feel free to add that if you'd like. And I'm gonna pass to Martin. Martin, however you'd like to introduce yourself quickly, and then pass to someone next.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I've been aware of Emily's project for a while. I'm a local resident here in Kingston. I've been involved with a lot of sporting events. One is a pretty stellar event. It's women's only competitive cycling, and I'm happy to be here. And Anna, you're next up.
Thank you, Martin. My name is Anna Brett. I'm a retired health educator, and I have been on Live Well Kingston Commission since the very beginning. And I love being here. Okay, I'll pass it on to Siobhan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siobhan. My connection is bad, so I'm going to turn off my camera. But my name is Siobhan. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Kingston Food Co-op, and this is my third commission meeting, I think. So thank you for having me, and I will pass it to Troy Ellen.
Thank you, Siobhan. I'm Troy Ellen Dixon, Marketing and Program Director at the African Roots Center, and I am very involved with the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative since March of 2020. And I will pass it on to Stacy.
Hey everybody, Stacy Kraft, Public Health Education Coordinator with the Ulster County Department of Health and Mental Health. And I'm happy to be here, and sorry my computer screen is not on yet, but it will be momentarily. There I am. Hi. I'll pass it on to Susanna.
Hi everyone, I'm Susanna Callahan, Vice President for Planning and Community Engagement for the Institute for Family Health. And I guess this is my first official meeting as a member of the commission, and thank you all for, I guess, approving my application. I appreciate that and happy to join you. And I guess it was a little late, so I don't know who went yet, but Freddie, did you go yet?
I have not. Freddie Garcia with Health Alliance Hospital. Also my first meeting as a commission member, joining Susanna there, and happy to be here and be able to contribute. And I'll pass it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Freddie. I'm Teresa Widman. I am not a commissioner on Live Well, but I am the chair of the Heal Well Focus team. And I had some time in my day today, so I thought I'd join today's meeting. Thanks, everyone.
All right, let's see. I see Tanya has joined us. Tanya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, Tanya Gardent. Just checking in to see what's going on. I think I noticed that there's a presentation, but I'm always interested to see what's going on with Live Well Kingston. There's always a lot of good topics. So thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. And I see that Heidi has just joined us. Heidi, are you able to introduce yourself? I know you barely just got in the room.
I am Heidi with YMCA.
Thanks, Heidi. meeting.
Short and
right.
sweet, short and sweet.
I'm going to quickly see if commissioners, if we can approve January's meeting.
Hey, there are two of us who haven't gone yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh, Malia, sorry, go on.
Malia Dumont, I'm vice president at Bard College, and I am a resident of the Rondout area in Kingston. I think Tim has not gone yet either.
Yeah, Tim Wiedemann, Director of Economic Development and resident right now of Midtown Kingston, but longtime resident of the Rondout.
My apologies. Thank you for catching that, Malia. I was so ready to go. Okay, again, I was going to move us on to the January meeting minutes, and then I guess I'm excited to hear Tim's presentation, so I'm just moving us along. Did any of the commissioners get a chance to review the minutes? Would anyone would like to make a motion to approve it or give me any edits? Now would be the time to do it.
I read through, didn't see any minutes. I'll make the motion to accept the meeting minutes from January.
I'll second.
Thank you, Malia. All right, I'll call the vote then, if I spell the names right here in the notes. Or I guess let me ask first if there's any abstentions. Would anyone like to abstain from voting on the notes? All right, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, you can say aye, you can give a thumbs up, you can use the icon, and then I'll call for nays. So all in favor?
Aye.
I see a lot of thumbs.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposition? All right, the motion passes. That was probably one of our fastest ever. Okay, that means, Tim, you're up. Would you like want me to share the screen?
If I can use the screen share, I'll share a quick presentation. I'll try not to get too bogged down in slides because I'd love to just have a conversation. But as I get myself up and running, I just want to say how awesome it is to come back to this group. I was involved for a little bit before I joined the county. And even as I was in the county, helped the city draft the bylaws and charter for the Live Well Kingston Commission when it shifted from a coalition to a commission. So it's really exciting to see you all here and to see the work you're all doing. So I'm going to share work that I'm doing, but I really am most interested in where it intersects with your all's work. And so would love to leave time for that conversation before we conclude. Emily, just to check time, what's a reasonable amount of time for me to consume from you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. This meeting usually is about an hour and a half. So let's want to do a 20-minute presentation and 10 minutes of questions?
That sounds great. I'm just setting myself up here. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm here to talk about an update to our economic development strategy at the county level. So I've been with the county for about 5 years, started out in our Office of Economic Development, and then moved around a bit. And for the last year, we've all been kind of tossed around as we've been dealing as frontline workers, almost all of us, on the health crisis that is the COVID-19 pandemic. And so in the midst of all that, we had some staff transition. We've had a lot of retirement in the county, and so there's been a lot of staff transition. And I've now assumed a role back in the county's Office of Economic Development. I'm now the director of the department. And as we went through the pandemic, we were also in the process of updating this decade-old economic development strategy that we had. And so as I took that role, finished up that project, and I'm here to share the outcomes of that work, our updated economic development strategy for the county. And I think it represents an interesting intersection of stuff that's been happening in the last few years that I'll walk you through a little bit of context before we get started. First thing, what is this thing, Ulster 2040? This is a shared vision that we've put together over the last year with a lot of input from different stakeholder groups for our county's economic future. And it's really distinguished from past planning work that we've done at the county level, and that we really think of it as something that we're going to build on over time. About 10 years ago, there was a process that involved a whole bunch of public meetings and then produced a final document, but that quickly became out of date as the economy changes pretty rapidly, especially lately. And then, as I mentioned, this is an update to our economic development strategy. So to start, I think the premise that really got us thinking about doing an update was a recognition that our economy is in a much different condition than it was in the late 2000s and into the early 2010s. And so I think this image was one that the county executive chose when we were doing a presentation recently to the Rondout Valley Business Association that I think really gets it right. We have spent decades trying to build up an economy, and I think we all probably feel in some ways like it's pretty precarious right now. And so the work ahead is to figure out how we strengthen this thing that we call a local economy and how we do it together. That sentiment is really reiterated in some recent local studies that have been coming out in the last year and a half or so. One that's really important, if you haven't seen it, is Pattern for Progress's Out of Alignment report. It really points to the fact that our region's economy is struggling and isn't really meeting the basic needs of our residents in a lot of ways, and points to some reasons for that, including a rapidly shrinking population in the 18 to 34-year-old cohort in our region. That's obviously a challenge and a symptom of a larger problem. A housing crisis that I know we feel pretty acutely here in Kingston and throughout the region as well, that's grown even more acute since the COVID-19 crisis began. And then school costs were a major subject of this report, looking at the expanding cost of schools and with the declining population, an increasing challenge to pay those costs. And then a trend that we all probably have almost taken for granted at this point, that over the last decade or two, our economy has shifted from largely driven by higher wage paying manufacturing jobs towards a service sector economy. And that comes with lower wages and the challenges that that entails. More locally, the United Way, in consultation and collaboration with their statewide organization, produces an annual study on the condition of working households. And they call their report the Alice Report. It's looking at families that are asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So the working poor, really, and trying to provide an alternative to the really ineffective measure of the federal poverty line as the indicator of poverty in our communities, really looking at the cost of living and what people are making and whether or not they're struggling. And it found that 2 in every 5 households in Ulster County, even before the pandemic, were struggling to meet their own basic needs as a household. Wages had been declining for some time, and costs are rising, especially in areas like childcare, healthcare, and housing. So that really set the stage, and then COVID happened, and we know as we start to grapple with the impacts of COVID on our economy, we start to see, and we hear in the kind of popular media a lot of discussion about what our recovery will look like, and it seems increasingly obvious that the recovery will exacerbate some of the problems that we've seen in the past, and that's often depicted as this K-shaped recovery. This showing that people who are higher wage earners have either not really declined in their wages at all, or are actually seeing growth in their wages, whereas low wage earners have seen a tremendous decline in their earnings and probably will take some time to recover from that. And also the indicators are that large companies and especially high technology companies will recover quickly, but smaller businesses and cyclical businesses and rural and poor communities will recover more slowly. And so that really points directly to a crisis that will continue to unfold for us here in Ulster County, and one that makes it even more compelling that we need to figure out some other way to support our local economy. So, another way to put all that is, over the course of the last however many years, couple hundred years, we've had a theory about economies that says if we improve GDP, if we improve output of our economy, we're going to improve the quality of life for our people in our community. And for a long time, that really did work. If you look at the metrics over the last couple hundred years, there is a steady increase in human well-being as economies throughout the globe have continued to expand. But we're at this inflection point now, and I think you can look at it in lots of different ways in different places. But ultimately, the question that starts to arise, which I assume you all feel because I know I feel it, is really, is this working for me, and who is it actually working for? And we start to see wealth and income gaps that are rising, real wages that are shrinking, and all the things that we expect from our economy are not really materializing in the way that we used to see them materialize. So that's the pretext. And so we felt that kind of theory about what's been going on really informs a different approach to our economic development work. And we've started to call our work Building a People-Centered Economy. The link at the bottom there will take you to the full document. There's about a 30-page document that describes this economic development strategy. It's pretty high level, and so our work will continue to drill it down to really practical steps that we can take. That's my everyday now, trying to figure out what are the things that we can do to try to advance a more people-centered economy in Ulster County. But I'll walk you through some of the high-level stuff. First of all, it's recognizing that really ultimately an economy is really just about the people in a place and the the value that they can bring to their households, to the community, to themselves. And so we need to rethink our definition of success in our economic development work to really center it back on people and engage with people in more deliberate ways to achieve success that they find meaningful. So it's about trying to lift up people in our community, not just about GDP as some abstract concept. And so that's kind of the premise. We had a group of folks that I felt really excited to be engaged with over the course of about a year, working with them on this report. Here's the names of the folks. We tried to represent different geographic parts of the county, different industries, different backgrounds and perspectives. And I feel like every time we would get together on mostly on a monthly basis, we would have the most exciting and interesting conversations, which was fun, but ended up making it so that there was a lot to try to fit into to a report to summarize it all. The key outcome of that report is a focus on some economic development priorities. And so what we theorize here is that if we're going to build a more people-centered economy, we need to think about what are the investments that we're going to make. And that those investments need to be not things that we invest in continually and not see results from, not see improvement in the well-being of our people, but are things that not only improve the economic prospects of our community, but also improve people's well-being, their health, all of the aspects that make for kind of a holistic economy. And so we focus on 4 main industries that we're prioritizing in the plan. The first is agriculture, food and beverage, health, wellness and care, which directly intersects with the work of Live Well Kingston, climate and energy, which is a little looser and it's kind of an emerging area that we think that there's opportunity, and artists, makers and creators. And so those are our industry clusters, as we call them, that we're going to focus our investment and attention on. And we put them as kind of purposefully pretty big and broad because we know that we want to make sure that we're inclusive with businesses that may not see themselves as, you know, involved in just one of these or maybe in multiple of them. We want to be able to have some flexibility to find homes for the businesses that do thrive here and that help make our economy successful. And then finally, at the bottom, there's an important recognition that it has not been present in past economic development strategies to the extent that we've done it here, that economic development is a silo, and we need to make sure that we understand that our work in economic development is contingent on and affects work in all sorts of other social and economic efforts in the county. And so infrastructure building for our economy and for our communities is an important part of our economic development strategy. I'm going to quickly go through these to just kind of explain those clusters a little bit more and why we chose them. So artists, makers, and creators is really an attempt to rebrand the idea of manufacturing, which I think over the years, I think people have lost faith in the fact that manufacturing can thrive in a place like Ulster County. But in fact, probably all of us know somebody who has a small scale manufacturing business of some sort that makes a product. And actually there's a lot of really exciting businesses and work going on in Ulster County throughout the county that would fall into this category. And I think the recognition that it's creative work is maybe the common thread that all of it has. And so we've really tried to emphasize that. And we have an advantage here because we have relatively cheap space in the larger geographic area that is the New York City metro area. And we have a strong community of makers and creators here that I think see themselves as a community, and we want to strengthen that. So we want to help establish new firms and expand the firms that are here. We see this as an important area for the opportunity for building greater equity in the community. These are relatively often small businesses that we can help with seed funding and capital to help start, and then hopefully can be a source of support and livelihood for communities throughout the county. And we also want to really recognize that these are businesses that are interdependent with one another and emphasize that and help connect them to one another. And we see our key investment, and I'll talk more about this, as trying to provide physical and virtual hubs for this community of makers and creators to gather and start to identify themselves as a cluster, as something that's important to our community, and give them the energy and support that they need to grow. Health, wellness, and care. This is one, actually, before I even get into it, it wasn't in our plan. And then COVID hit and we said, whoa, wait a minute. We have to think more about health, wellness, and care. That clearly is an important cluster in our community. It's one of our largest sectors. Actually, if you look at employment, it's probably the largest non-governmental sector in our economy. We have lots of small communities that struggle to make sure that they have the health and wellness and care services that they need. And it's something that, especially coming out of COVID, we all recognize, I hope, that it's important for us to take care of one another and to support care in our communities. The goal here, though, is that there's a challenge. We need to raise wages, and often these positions, these jobs in the healthcare and wellness sector are low wage jobs. And that's especially challenging given those rising costs that we pointed to in the studies that we cited. And then we also want to, at the same time, improve the quality of care by making sure that it's accessible and affordable to people in our communities. So the method there is going to be to emphasize partnerships, and that's part of what made me excited to present to you all here today, to start establishing more of those partnerships with the Live Well Kingston Coalition and Commission. And so we also want to engage with some of our creative healthcare professionals, whether it's Health Alliance or Ellenville Regional Hospital or IFH. You know, there's some really interesting work going on in each of those organizations that really provides innovative new models for us to think about how we provide health, wellness, and care in our communities. Agriculture, food, and beverage should probably surprise no one. This is an industry that we've, well, it's actually several industries that we may have thought about separately in the past, but are clearly strengths of our community. Maybe the differentiator here is that we think of them as one big cluster, that really ultimately this is about growing food, processing food, making food products out of it, and getting it to people who need that food. And so it's a historical strength. It's again drawing on our strength, our geographical location as a strength. We have an advantage being on in the metro market area, and we have a lot of committed partners from the food bank of the Hudson Valley that's depicted in the picture here, to food processors, to agricultural producers, all sorts of partners that are already engaged in this arena. Our goals here are to really help create a value chain and to strengthen that value chain so that growers have more markets to sell their products and have the opportunity to value add their products, take their fruits and turn them into jams and get more revenue from those jams than they could just from the fruits. And also to encourage our entrepreneurship. This is another area where there's low barriers to entry in a lot of cases. And so we see an opportunity for new players to enter the field. And then also, you know, there's a lot of struggling sectors. Our agriculture sector struggles. It's tough to be a farmer around here. And so we want to make sure that we support them. So our hope here is to expand markets, invest in facilities that allow that value-added production and collaboration that supports it, and to ultimately fill supply chain gaps in the whole ag, food, and beverage value chain. Finally, climate and energy. This is a little bit newer in terms of a focus for us, but we really think of Ulster County, I think of Ulster County as a leader in the environment. And so it makes a lot of sense to transition that kind of values that we have as a community into an opportunity for us to express those values through the way that we do business and the businesses that we support. So we're a recognized pioneer and we have committed leadership on this topic. The county executive just delivered his State of the County address yesterday, and it was really focused on a Green New Deal for Ulster County, emphasizing his commitment to this priority. Our goal here is really to try to make this into an industry cluster that is something that Ulster County is known for, to attract new and expanding firms and establish our industry niche here. One kind of factoid that, two factoids that I've learned in the process of this. One, the Hudson Valley has a larger density of water professionals than anywhere else in the country, mostly due to the fact that we also have one of the largest unfiltered watersheds in the world here in Ulster County. And I think this is true, but I don't have the facts to back it up, so don't quote me. But I would bet some decent money that our largest export as a county is actually water. And so I think that there's an interesting point there that we probably haven't thought enough about, and we're eager to explore that further and see if there's an economic opportunity there for us. And so we are focused here on developing a workforce, identifying sites, and cultivating leads to try to grow this industry around our climate and energy here in Ulster County. So finally, the social and economic infrastructure is not really an industry cluster, but it's an area that we're going to focus a lot of attention on. The things that were cited in the Ulster 2040 report is a need to invest to try to hold down the rising cost of living. It's pretty hopeless for us to think that our economic development work can increase wages quickly enough to keep up with the rising cost of living that we've seen here. So we see our work as two-pronged. We got to try to raise wages, but we also have to try to reduce the cost of living here, or at least try to mitigate those rising costs, particularly in areas like housing, childcare, and transportation. We want to support local ownership because the model of people getting a job and having their employer care for them for their entire career is long gone. And so local ownership of businesses is one way to add earning potential to our community. And that's an important emphasis that we want to make. We want to help, especially young people, connect to quality jobs early in their career to help provide that ladder that provides income potential that'll allow them to continue to live here as they mature and grow up in our community. And so quality jobs is really a euphemism for jobs that pay a living wage. And so, we're really emphasizing that as a priority. We're used to an economic development world measuring just job creation and being completely neutral to whether those jobs pay minimum wage or $100,000 a year. Our emphasis is going to be on trying to start to look at the compensation that those jobs provide as one indicator of their quality and try to focus on the quality jobs in our community. We also have a really fragmented economic development system in the county and the state. And so it's something that we need to fix. We need to align better with all the different players in economic development, and also recognize that folks that may not think of themselves as part of the economic development system often are. And so our healthcare providers are part of our economic development system. They're part of what contribute to the quality of life here. They're part of what make it an attractive place and make it a place that can sustain the businesses that we want to grow. And then we also recognize that we've not done a good job in the past at really representing, involving underrepresented communities, whether that's Black and brown communities, whether that's the rural parts of our county, whether that's seniors that ultimately are still an active part of our community and need to be engaged in our work in economic development. So wrapping up, we have now started to launch. This is really in the kind of prototypical phases, but encourage you all to check it out. We have a survey that asks people to indicate which of those cluster areas they feel most aligns with their work. And we're trying to build basically communities of practice around those clusters so that we can engage deeper in a dialogue with folks that see that as important in how we roll out this strategy and what we implement first, setting priorities. You can find that survey at our county economic development page, which unfortunately is a pretty long link, but ulstercountiny.gov economic-development, there's a survey there. We'll be having some sector roundtables on each of those cluster areas in 2021, hopefully next quarter. And we'll use those to try to identify challenges and opportunities and priorities for our work in those sectors. I'll just throw these all up there and just maybe quickly touch on a couple. In 2021, our focus is going to be on the Green New Deal. The county executive just announced some initiatives, including a universal basic income pilot and also a Green Business Champions program. We're going to be working with businesses that see themselves as green businesses and trying to encourage more activity to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and improve the efficiency of their businesses. We are, and this is maybe directly relevant to the Well Kingston group, and some of you are actually probably maybe aware that we just sent out a survey to all of our healthcare providers in the county, asking them about their workforce challenges. We've started to assemble a workforce coalition in the healthcare sector, looking at the challenges that our healthcare businesses are facing in recruiting and retaining the workforce that they need. And so we're trying to align our partners in the workforce development world and the training and education world to try to help support those businesses. We're going to gear up to support the expansion of value-added production for our local farms and growers. This is a priority that maybe I'll talk a little bit more about our plans out at the former IBM site, and I think there's an intersection of this work with the reuse of some of the IBM facilities out in the town of Ulster. As well, for our makers and creators hubs, we have a couple projects in the works to create physical locations when the world goes back to operating physically that will allow our makers and creators to kind of convene in a physical space and start to build community. And then we're also continuing to engage at the local level. We've got 23 towns, 3 villages, a city, and they're all partners in this economic development work. And so we're engaging with them in that. The final new thought is we're actively soliciting expressions of interest as the county has now taken ownership of 2 parcels of the former IBM site in the town of Ulster. These are, for those that are familiar, they're on the west side of Enterprise Drive. The building in the picture there is the former Bank of America building. They had their tax processing center there. And there's an indoor picture below. So the county now owns these parcels, and we are interested in redeveloping them in partnership with local businesses, local developers, local institutions. And so we've issued a request for expressions of interest, which is county speak for tell us what you think should happen here and what you want to do to be a part of it. And so that's out there now. I think there's a link here before we're done with this, and it's on their county website. It's really simple. So if anybody feels like, oh, I have a project I want to do and that's a perfect spot for it, you can make that known simply by sending a letter in through the proper channel before February 26th. And so I'll put the link up in a second. But we acquired these properties about a year and a half ago due to unpaid taxes. There's a continuing issue on the rest of the campus that hopefully at some point we will be able to deal with. But right now we see an opportunity to really change perceptions about the whole campus and start getting stuff going through these two properties that the county now owns. So we're seeking these expressions of interest to get that started. And again, on our economic development page, you can find a link to that request for expressions of interest. And don't let it scare you. It's not as complicated as it looks when you first glance at it. And Malia, I know we just had a conversation with Karen, and Bard is considering submitting an expression of interest. And we've got a bunch of local businesses. I just got off the phone with Stockade Football Club, and they might express interest in the site. So there's a lot of exciting momentum there, and the more the merrier. So if anybody has any ideas, please take a look. That's it. I tried to move quickly, hopefully not too quickly, but I'm eager to talk now more about this, answer questions, dig deeper in any areas that seem of interest.
That was great, Tim, by the way. Really wonderful.
Thanks, Martin. I can count on you for a boost. Thanks.
Well, I also think you and I are going to be boosted by being surrounded by all these awesome women. I'm looking for a pencil sharpener.
I thank you. That was really interesting. I actually have a lot of questions, but I won't go through my usual too many questions. But so I'm from the Institute for Family Health, and I was just interested in this survey that you said you sent out about the health workforce.
Yep.
Consortium, and a couple of things. Did you send it out to like every single provider or every single like institution, healthcare institution?
We focused on the institutions, but we have a list that I'm trying to remember somebody from our workforce development office had that has probably about 300 organizations. And so my assumption is that that includes some private practices, some physicians' offices that are part of larger practices. It also includes, I mean, I don't know, Teresa, maybe if you're still on, maybe you can say whether or not you got this email, but it's intended to include our wellness practitioners that are outside of the traditional healthcare system as well. But I would be really eager to make sure that it's received by the proper person at IFH and at Health Alliance. This is often our challenge, is that like, especially in the larger organizations, we're not always quite sure who the right person to get this stuff in front of is.
I can email you separately.
Great.
I actually think I have your email, but I'm just also wondering if you looked into, I don't know if you know about CHAHEC, the Catskill Area Health Education Center, that actually is focused on workforce development. They're just a really good resource. I can send you this separately.
That would be great.
A good resource about this, but
yeah. Well, and I think just on that topic, we I think in the not too distant future, we would like to host a discussion with our larger healthcare providers about this and about how we can best be of assistance. It's maybe an indicator of how the workforce system traditionally has worked, that we often go off on our own without a good conversation with employers about what really is the challenge that they face and how we can help. We're trying to undo that. The system itself is a little broken, but we'd love to have that conversation.
That'd be great. Yeah. Okay. I'll follow up with you. Thank you.
Great.
Tim, I put your email in the chat for everybody.
Thank you.
And I just read about in the Daily Freeman about this, because I missed the county executive's state of the county address yesterday, but I read about the pilot project for the universal income.
Yeah.
In the Daily Freeman. I thought it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exciting step.
Very exciting. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear about the results of that.
Yep.
And thanks so much for a really comprehensive, outstanding presentation. There's so many fantastic things you guys are working on. And I just want to start by, again, echoing what Susanna just said. We're, especially at BARD, very grateful that Pat Ryan actually mentioned BARD last night in the State of the County address, that we want to be part of. We're here in Dutchess County, which is where I'm sitting right now, but we are a major part of the economy of Ulster County. And there are lots of people like me who live in Ulster County from BARD. So very glad to be a part of this. I guess my question, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but and I think COVID has affected Ulster County in a lot of ways. And one of the ways that I've really noticed is people who may have been commuters once or twice a week, now they're living full time up here. And this is not just people who escaped the city for a couple months. There are a lot of people who already had second homes up here and are now turning them into their first homes. And their jobs aren't necessarily in Ulster County. Like they still have their job back in the city. So they're earning their money in the city, but they're spending it in Ulster. And I'm just, I'm curious about how you're approaching that dynamic and thinking about trying to use this dynamic as a way to strengthen the economy as well.
Yeah, it's something that we are thinking a lot about right now. It's kind of, I was just on a call with a business owner down the city that showed me the office and said, there's no one here. They're all working remotely, and a lot of them are up in the Hudson Valley. And we know that that's kind of been true to some extent. We had a little pilot program a year and a half, 2 years ago with a group called Grand Central Tech. That was a tech co-working space down near Grand Central Station, and really felt that their members were interested in being up in the Hudson Valley for the summer. So we were exploring that even back before the pandemic and thinking about how does this work, and ultimately recognizing that there are pros and cons to that situation, which, you know, on the con side, it's the increased cost of living that having the ability for people to work in the city and own a home up here creates. But I think there's obviously a lot of opportunity there too. And it's creating, you know, I think the other thing, I don't know if it was in the Freeman yesterday or the day before, the county had projected sales tax revenues to decline really precipitously based on COVID. And it turns out that they actually stayed pretty level with last year. And that's in part due to the fact that a lot of folks are here, they're making an income down in the city, and they're able to spend that income here at our local businesses. So maybe the only thing I can say definitively is that this is something that even 5 years ago, we were recognizing that there's an approach to economic development that we're still working on to figure out how to engage better with second homeowners, how to encourage them to be a part of our local communities in addition to being a part of our local economy. And I think that you know, that's a continuing conversation that we need to keep circling back to. And it's you know, it's maybe especially important now, as we just looked at some data from our Board of Elections that points to a huge increase in registered electors in the county. And that may be folks who were already here, but were treating this as their second home, making it their first primary residence and choosing to register to vote here. But it also may be totally newcomers. It's tough. There isn't a great data source to point to for that. But we know it's here, and I think we're grappling with that now and trying to figure out the right response. One idea that's been floated, and I'm interested in anybody, I'll throw this out there, it's a little crazy, but is to try to figure out whether there's a formal role for somebody at the county or city or town level to really engage better with new residents, and to help residents understand, you know, everything from how to start a business here to, you know, where what charities are most in need of support in a community, all the things that take some time if you've not been here full time and are moving here full time, or changing your second home into your first home. So, you know, I think it's an area that there's a lot of work to do.
I'll just say one thing quickly in response to that. I know others have questions. I thought most of these new residents are people who are very privileged, and so they need much less help in being welcomed to the community.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a totally valid point. My thinking though on it is that it's less about welcoming them and more about helping them understand that they have an impact on our community, and that they should think carefully about some of the decisions that they might make without considering that impact on. It's a different thing if you live in Manhattan. Your decisions have almost zero effect on your neighborhood. Whereas here, you know, a decision about what you do with your home or which business you contribute to or charity you contribute to can have a huge impact on a community. And so it's less about welcoming, more about trying to integrate. I don't know. This is a sensitive area. I understand. It's something that I feel like, though, we knew that this was a challenge. It was an unspoken challenge before COVID. And I think COVID is forcing us all to pay more attention to it. So hopefully we'll find some ways to deal with it better.
I think similarly, Freddie put a question in the chat. Can you speak to gentrification in your plan? How to plan to manage that with big ideas in 2040 vision?
Yeah, so it's a huge topic. And so I don't think I can do it justice in a quick, tough question, a quick response. But but I think that the premise of the whole report and plan is that that the assumption that we can just keep doing business as usual when it comes to economic development is flawed. It hasn't worked. We had 10 years of a booming economy before the pandemic, and yet we still saw income stagnate. We saw increasing disparity in wealth and income. We saw people unable to afford living here. And so our attempt is to rethink some of the basics of how we do economic development work in our communities. The simple example that I would point to is calling out the importance of housing in our economic development strategy. It's often thought of as somehow separate and different, or if housing is in an economic development strategy, it's because we think construction jobs are good jobs, so we want to see houses built for the construction jobs. This is not that. This is a recognition that we need to do better about providing housing that is affordable to residents who either already live here or who our businesses need here in order to succeed. Entry-level employees, younger employees, all of that needs to be in here. So I mean, this is the part of the conversation we are eager to continue having, figuring out how we do respond to a lot of economic forces that some of them are out of our control, that are global and national and regional forces, and some of them are in our control, and we need to figure out what those are and how we can make progress on helping to lift up residents in our community without pushing people out and displacing people.
Traylon, go ahead, and I'm going to say about 5 more minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. It's an ambitious plan. I hope it's more than you pushing this forward.
I've got all you.
Right. But in any event, one of the questions that I have when you were talking about the underrepresented communities, what is the way in which you are going to be engaging with them and getting information from them? Because another thing that doesn't work is just surveying people or focus grouping people, but putting them in a space where they really feel heard, and safer in terms of speaking up.
Yeah. So there's a few things that we're doing in the short term, but mostly recognizing that this is another area of big change for us. I think the conversations we're having right now are the county has recently hired a chief diversity officer, and that provides us with an internal resource to bounce ideas off of and figure out a better approach to engaging with underrepresented communities. We are forming an equity and inclusion advisory council that we're looking to involve businesses from throughout the county to help us think through how we can restructure some of our programs to make them more accessible to underrepresented communities. That's a first step. I think we don't even know yet what the barriers really are. What have we created in the systems that we have for economic development that are causing it to be generally true that the businesses that take advantage of our services are privileged businesses. They're people who have had other opportunities that have put them into place where they can actually reach out to us and ask for help. So I think that's our first step, is to really engage better in a discussion about what are the barriers, what do we need to change about the way that we're approaching economic development to make it more accessible. I think beyond that, so alongside that, where we do learn about something we can do differently, we're committed to changing the ways that we do business. The fact of the matter is that so much of what we do as a department is tapping into funding and programs that are state or federal level programs. And there we don't have a lot of influence on changing eligibility criteria or the application process or who they're designed to serve. But we do have local programs, and where we do have local programs, we're ready to start making shifts. We have a revolving loan fund, and we've set aside some funding for what we're calling the Ulster Equity Loan Program, which is a small loan, low interest loan program for minority and women-owned businesses exclusively. That's the priority, is to minority and women-owned businesses. My sense is that that's a step, but there's a reason why historically we haven't seen minority and women-owned businesses borrowing through our revolving loan fund. And it's not just because they didn't know about it. There are other barriers there, and those might have to do with the application process. It probably has something to do with the fact that most of the minority and women-owned businesses in our county are very small businesses, and taking on a loan is a pretty scary prospect if you're a small business, especially in a pandemic. And so we have to think a little bit more about, is a loan even really the right thing to help support those businesses?
Tanya asks about affordable transportation. Do you want to read? I can read it more. Has there been consideration of the importance of transit, avoiding sprawl, increasing walkability?
So Tanya, you know, you're speaking my language. I'm not a planner officially, but I've done a lot of planning work in my time, and all of that is, you know, it's kind of like we should have been doing that 50 years ago. A lot of communities have really stepped up their smart growth work, and I think we're overdue for that. It's something that, you know, maybe specifically I'll speak to the relevance of all those factors to our housing challenge. We need to make sure that we are building housing, and especially focusing on building housing that is in places where there's access to transit, where we're avoiding sprawl, where we're increasing walkability. And those are the projects that I think when I talk about housing, one of the things that we are immediately doing is converting the old county jail into workforce housing. But then also we're about to release a housing plan and study that will start to look at other locations throughout the county that make sense for housing development, and then to support that development. So, you know, I think I mean, it's a no-brainer at this point. We should be focusing development in our kind of cores, whatever those are, if those are small hamlets or City of Kingston, in order to try to make for smarter land use decisions. It's an area where we rely a lot on our planning department in the county. That's kind of their bailiwick. And ultimately, as probably people know, a lot of those land use decisions are really made at the local level, at the town, village, or city level. And so we do our best to support and encourage the right kind of growth there.
How about one last question, and then we'll thank Tim. Anybody got one last burning question? All right.
So I see one from
Linda put a question in the chat.
Yeah, so how does assisting businesses with workforce recruitment intersect with outreach on living in Ulster County with information and resources for prospective workers? So, you know, Melinda, I think you touch on an important point that, I mean, I'm sensitive to it. When we have employers, especially in the healthcare sector, in the construction sector, in the manufacturing sector, that are desperate, they have jobs. So like if anybody that says there are no jobs out there, it's not true. They're in certain industries and sectors, and they struggle to fill those jobs. Our preference, and this is really what we're pushing forward with that healthcare coalition, is to find ways to develop our own. Take our existing residents that are either transitioning from one career to another, try to find pathways for them to enter into those careers in growth industries, or try to work with our high schools and our colleges to try to provide the pipeline of workers that can then immediately, instead of having to move away somewhere, can move into those positions. So developing our own is our first priority. But then, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we have the lucky situation of being a highly attractive place to live. Just the quality of life here is high. We haven't had to do a whole lot of recruitment of talent, and I think it'll probably stay that way. I don't think, you know, there's a sensitivity to not wanting to put public money into going out there and trying to recruit people from elsewhere to fill jobs that are here. We'd rather spend our public dollars on supporting our existing residents to fill those positions. But it is the fact, if we don't do that, these employers will find ways to recruit people from out of the region, and that's the situation that we're in.
Well, that was a lot of information, Tim. Thank you for all of it. I've tried to put a few of the links in the chat, and I'll have it in the notes for everyone. And I'm assuming they can follow up with you with any follow-up questions.
Of course. And I hope to get an opportunity to talk more and to engage you all in some of the work that we're doing.
I have one question. Would we be able to get a copy of that PowerPoint?
Sure, I'll send it through Emily.
Thank you very much.
Great question. Good question.
All right.
Thanks, Tim. That was really great.
Thanks, guys.
Feel free to stick around, Tim, or I know you're busy. Jump off if you need to. I'm going to move us on to administrative matters. First up will be to elect officers. Then we'll just review the action plan. And then Martin has a little while ago applied to be a commissioner, and I'll give him a moment to introduce himself in whichever way he'd like. So I'll move on to elect officers. We had a robust conversation last month. It was actually a joy to talk with everybody about it. I hope everyone had a little bit of time to think it over. I can review those positions again if you'd like, or commissioners I'd like to hear if anyone, I need to try to fill the 4 positions. So I'd love for some volunteers who are willing to take those positions on. Anybody willing to start us off with that?
What were the positions again, Emily? Can you describe them quickly?
Sure. So it's chair, and the chair's responsibilities are to chair this meeting, but I do that primarily. But I also partner with the chair to sometimes build the agenda or to write letters of support. Sometimes they're on call for a little bit of support for the work that I do. The vice chair fills the chair's position if they're not available. The secretary, if we're in person, would take the notes while I run the meeting. And the treasurer, if we were to develop a budget, would be the one to bottom line that work. So they'd probably be the keeper of the files, and they would communicate with me, work on the finances. We currently don't have a budget, so that role doesn't actually have a whole lot of work in this moment. That's kind of a quick overview, and the goal is to create a slate of officers for those 4 positions.
So do you want nominations, or how do you want to do this?
You can not, we're a casual group. I feel like you can nominate yourself. You can friendly nominate someone else if they think that they might be interested and open to it.
And do we want to start, Emily, by saying who's currently holding the positions?
We can, if I can remember that. Thank you, Stacy. So Jerry was the president. Stacy, were you vice?
Vice chair.
Thank you. Caitlin, who was no longer a commissioner, was the secretary, and I forget who was treasurer. Anybody remember? Yeah. So if you couldn't tell already.
I think I was.
Oh, Anna. Thank you, Anna.
Yes, I think I was treasurer.
Right, because I think Anna has been in all 4 roles. So she's batting what's the term? Batting 1,000?
Just about. Yes, batting 1,000. Yep.
So I think Anna has gotten her pass. I think that Anna doesn't need to fill another position unless she'd like to, of course. See, it looks like Melinda is offering.
That's okay. I'm okay.
Thanks. Looks like Melinda is willing to be vice chair. So I've got a vice chair.
Okay.
Don't be shy. Who can give me a little bit of time twice a year for a phone call? That's what I need for a chair. Troy Ellen, do you have a question, or are you offering?
I can.
Yay, Troy Ellen. Oh, goody, I get to work more with Troy Ellen.
I know.
All right. Secretary, who would like to be a secretary for if we ever come back in person to take on some meeting notes?
Someone who likes to write.
I was trying to uplift Siobhan to take one of the positions because I think it would be an interesting voice around the table, though it's not like we have executive committee meetings.
How did I know that was gonna happen, Troy Ellen? Question. Number 1, am I breaking up right now? Is my connection good?
Hear you.
A little echoey.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my my camera so that's a little smoother. But does the secretary would this be for, like you said, returning in person, Emily, or is it going forward for all the meetings?
Right. So during COVID, when we've been recording these meetings, I've been doing the notes, and I'm happy to continue doing that because I'm able to go back and review. If we are in person, it's really hard to do notes at the same time. So then I really do secretary. But we don't really know when we'll go back into person. And if we do, I wouldn't be surprised if our community still expects recorded meetings. It's possible that this kind of culture could continue. So Siobhan, I would love to have you as secretary if you are interested.
Yeah, I can take that one.
All right, thank you. All right, last one is treasurer.
Since it seems so complex, I will definitely tackle that.
Thank you, Stacy. So we have a slate, unless there's anyone else that would like to contribute any information. We've got a slate of for chair, Troy Ellen, vice chair, Melinda, secretary, Siobhan, and treasurer, Stacy. And if a commissioner would like to make a motion to, gosh, what's the language, Troy Ellen? A motion to consider them as officers?
I make a motion to consider them as officers.
Original and good.
Thank you, Lori.
I'll second.
Thank you, Freddie. All right. So let me see if I'm getting this right. So I think we have to first kind of like, technically we would have had to open it up for consideration. And then I think we have to do a second vote to accept it. So right now, I believe that the vote should be like, we're technically opening it up for discussion. So I'm going to call for the vote, and then after that, we'll do another vote. So I'm going to ask all in favor. You can say aye, you can put your thumb up, you can put an icon up, all against, thumbs down, and then I'll ask for abstentions. So all in favor, some kind of sign. See lots of thumbs. Thank you. Anyone against? All right, that looks, and any abstentions? See none, the motion passes. And now I'm going to do another vote to accept the slate. So can I hear a motion to accept the slate?
Also move.
Let's see, I missed who said that. Sorry. Was that Malia? Thank you, Malia.
Second.
I second.
All in favor to accept the slate of officers?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right.
Shouldn't I not vote if I'm in the position to be voted on? So I
No,
would,
because you're voting for the slate,
Yeah.
which
okay,
doesn't just include you.
so I can vote?
Yes.
Okay, so then I'll be an aye for voting yes.
Can't get out of it now, Stacy. All right, and seeing that, I think the motion passes. Thank you all. That was fairly painless. Thank you very much. Next up is a quick review of our action plan. We had kind of a robust conversation about this last month, but I'm going to put it in our chat again. The goal here would be to have a motion to accept it. That doesn't mean that the action plan is, carved in stone. I suspect that we'll come back. It's a living document. We come back to it and we provide updates and we adjust it as necessary. But the idea is by doing a motion to accept it, it's kind of, what's the word? Like you're giving it your approval to continue forward with it. What changed after last month's discussion was 3B. We added in some more communications language, especially about the wider community and the focus teams. We had quite a bit of conversation about how to cross communicate between the work that's happening in the focus teams and then also out to the bigger community. So we added encourage focus team members to participate in the commission, and Teresa came tonight, success. And then we're going to work to possibly create a quarterly email blast. And then we're going to try to, Melinda had the idea about potentially doing an annual focus team meeting where different focus team members come together and kind of present on the projects that they're working on. Those were some concrete options that we came up with. So that said, any questions or feedback on the action plan at this time? All right. If this feels somewhat acceptable to move forward with, I could accept a motion to accept it. And then, like I said, we can always come back and reassess it.
It doesn't have to be in a year we reassess it, but as things shift, we could make adjustments and tweaks.
And if I recall, I think
I'm comfortable with that.
Sorry, Troy.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah, and in fact, I think I have it on our schedule later in the year to review it. So I've got a motion and a second, so I'll call a vote. So all in favor to accept this action plan for 2021, give me a thumbs up and aye. All right, anybody opposed? I see no opposition. Any abstentions? See none, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, we've got an action plan. Yeah. So
Great.
I want to give Martin an opportunity to introduce himself. As I mentioned, he applied. The way that we normally do this is that Martin, you'll introduce yourself in any way you'd like. And then after we finish our agenda tonight, the commission will go into an executive session to discuss it. And then I'll let you know by email what the decision was.
Great, great. Well, sounds very democratic. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tim. That was marvelous. Kind of a motivator for what the next 20 years has to offer for the county at large. I made that comment and I'll say it again. And Emily's been a big influence in my life living here in Kingston, just through her enthusiasm for wellness and livable streets. But being surrounded by all of you is a really feel good. I've had the chance to work with Heidi Kirchner on events and done stuff at Bard College. So in general, it's a feel good to be in a group where wellness and motivation to sort of initiate change, but also to see the change continue. So as a commissioner, I'm not sure just what that role requires of me, but I think, to be very blunt, I think having a few men on the group or part of the team is a good mix. It always brings a different perspective. Freddie, I've also done things with. All of this, when I say things done, revolve around bicycling, which is kind of my bailiwick. Something I've talked to Tim about, in that I think tourism and bicycling are pretty endemic to Ulster County. And I think all in all, being an athlete, and I only say this in modesty, I trained for 2 separate Olympics. So the whole mindset of trying to provide a healthful environment for everyone is great. But when you talk about walkability and Emily's striving for livable streets, the whole concept of bicycle and what Kristen Wilson's working on in the county at large to make particularly the city of Kingston, but now with the Empire State Trail, bicycle friendly, is kind of a rock star thing. And I found it really interesting when we began to hear from Tim and when Malia brought it up about the people living from other parts of the country, particularly Manhattan, migrating to the county. We live in a great county. We live in probably one of the most beautiful parts of North America. And it's a great way to highlight it by being able to see it not in a car. And the bicycle is a big part of that. And if we can get more young people on bicycling, or people in general to do it as we make the streets safer, I think that's a big motivation. So to learn from you all would be great, and to add where I can would be wonderful, and hopefully that would be something that I can contribute to the group. So without being further long-winded, I think that's maybe where I'll stop.
And usually now I offer it up to the commissioners if anyone has any questions of Martin to get to know him a little bit better, or guests as well.
I see Heidi smirking. Last time I saw Heidi, we were doing a water station for the Tour de Kingston out in pouring rain.
I'm just curious, what did you train for in the Olympics? Cycling?
You shouldn't have asked me. Competitive cycling.
Okay.
I'm pretty bicycle centric.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for that. But yeah, thank you for asking. And also, just as a side note, not to be gossiping, but my doctor for the last 35 years is Dr. Mark Josefsky, which I think who works closely with Susanna. And just as a side note, Mark was, when I quit bicycle racing and came back from Europe, I put on a bicycle race in Woodstock, New York, and Mark was the race doctor back in 1989.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, well, you're all great. So I'm flattered to have Emily be patient with me. I kind of went MIA when she first shared with me the idea of this. And now I'm here, and coincidentally enough, Tim was here. So got to learn a lot. And no need to worry about Spanish Inquisition. You could always ask questions when I'm not around.
Sorry, did I miss the document, the application?
I didn't get to pull it up. I didn't know Martin was joining us today, but I can email it out to everyone if you'd like, or I'll find it maybe while we talk a little bit further.
Okay, because I would like to look at it before the end of the meeting.
I can still talk. I've always got something to say, but if there are other agenda items, Emily, you should pursue them.
Thank you. Yeah, I was pausing to see if anyone had any other questions or comments, but I'm not hearing any. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martin. Thanks for joining us.
Great. I also, because I'm a guest and you have other things to deal with, I think this is a great opportunity to be a gentleman and bow out and say goodnight. But let me know where I can be of help. I'm flattered to have been here, and I love all your energy.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks
Ciao.
for joining. All right. So next on the agenda, we didn't have anything in old business nor new business. So now would be the time if anyone has anything they want to bring up for new business. And then if not, we'll move on to announcements and communications. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
I think in new business, we need to think, not tonight, but we need to probably set aside time to have a conversation around the economic development plan.
Okay.
So that we're not just, so that the relationship isn't just ceremonial, but really put some thought behind it. I know we're not a body that can, advance policy, but we are people who can advocate in the community on things. And I think that that's very important. I will make one comment to the group, please indulge me. When Tim made the thing about, and it did work for a long time, about the GDP rising, lifting all boats, I went, yeah, not so much. When from where I come from. The thing I find interesting about it, and it's not just here, it's everywhere, is now that it is affecting more than just minority communities, the indigenous communities, for example, people are rethinking the way capitalism works and stuff that needs to happen to support all of us in a meaningful way. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I wonder, I have to go back and look at Tim's PowerPoint because there was a lot of information, but I think he did say that they were looking for input, right? And for in the different for the different priority areas. And I wonder if we should be sharing this with the other focus teams too, where there's a intersection. So right with the health piece for Heal Well and some of the agricultural, that they grow well. And I can't remember, I'm terrible at remembering the names of all the focus teams, but just making sure that they have that PowerPoint and know that they can provide some input into those areas too.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
I think it's the survey link that we want to share. The one that he talked about being on the website was very long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, further to the survey, I think the survey is for individuals, right? So to Troy Ellen's point, I think it'd be great for us to discuss this, because then we could also send a letter as Live Well Kingston to the Ulster County department, whatever the department is called, if there are particular points that we want to highlight or advocate for in the economic development plan. And this is a perfect timing for this too, because it's really long-term planning. So this is potentially going to have a pretty deep impact in what we tell them now.
May I propose as a next step, how about I set up a call that's not part of the commission meeting, and we can have a little bit of kind of more casual conversation about how we'd like to move this initiative forward. And then we can bring it back to the commission if it's a letter or if it's a project or something more formal. And I'll open that up to everyone here, and then whoever can join will be able to join. All right, great. Thank you for that, Troyan. Anything else for new business, or and I'll also open it up to announcements or communications. We have let's see, we've got Teresa, who's not quite a guest, but sort of a guest. If Teresa has any announcements, or Tanya, if you have any announcements, now would be the time to do it.
I don't know if anybody's aware of, we had a small group of us had hosted a Strong Towns event. Strongtowns.org is a great website to check out. Teresa, I think you were there. Maybe Teresa was there.
I wasn't there. I
Oh, okay.
wanted to be there.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we arranged. Clark Richter's posted it on his YouTube channel. He, you may know him from before all the meetings were up online. He has a YouTube channel, and he posted many municipal meetings on there. So that's the Kingston News on YouTube. His channel is called the Kingston News, and it's I can't remember the name. I just thought of announcing it to you guys, so I don't have my notes here, but it's Strong Towns Coming to Kingston, How to Grow Our City. And the reason that we put this event together is because we think that the zoning code is about to come up again before the Common Council. We've got a new comprehensive plan, but we don't yet have a zoning code to go with that. And so we don't have a code that actually upholds our current goals. So, and the talk is more about how to responsibly grow your city in an equitable and sustainable way. And Chuck Marone from Strong Towns did a really good job, I thought, of tying it in to where we are here now. A lot to do with economic development too, and bottom up rather than top down.
And I did catch some of that, and I thought it was really great. And all in the notes and in the minutes that I send out, I'll link to the event.
Emily, I have something I just want to bring everyone's attention to. Something that Scenic Hudson is working on, trying to bring the first state park to Kingston. And this would be called Hudson Cliffs State Park. And so they're having a number of, first of all, they're doing a survey. I'll put a link to the survey in the chat. And then they're having a couple of, I know it's a really, sorry, it's a really long link. They're having a couple of community listening sessions in the next couple of days. There's one tomorrow, there's another one Saturday, and there's one next Thursday. So I think if you go to Scenic Hudson's website, there's more information there. But this is a really exciting opportunity for the city. And I think it fits into, in some ways, fits into Grow Well, maybe, or and certainly part of the economic development that that Tim was talking about earlier too.
Malia, thank you. Do you know, is Hudson Cliffs a done deal as the name?
I don't know. I'm a supporter of Scenic Hudson, so I get their emails. They have set up a website, or it's called like HudsonCliffsParkInfo.org, which doesn't seem to be working. So I don't know where the name came from.
I'm just curious that with all that's going on, they chose to name something once again after Hudson.
Right, and it used to be called Quarry Waters. Apparently, this is, I don't know why they would change the name of it unless if it's going to be a state park. I'm sure the state is the deciding factor. But you would hope that we would have some influence over that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Malia. I clicked the link that you shared. Is this, where in Kingston is this? Is this downtown? Like by Rotary Park? Is that what I'm thinking of?
To be honest, I am not 100% sure. I I got the email from Scenic Hudson saying, we're working on this park. We'd like your input. And they didn't, I'm looking at the email again. A new park is coming to the Kingston area. We need your help to make it welcoming and inspiring.
I can explain where it is.
Yeah, okay.
So if anyone has been tuned into the new Brickyard Rail Trail, that goes right through that property. So you can park at the beach and walk in if you want to go through the, I'm calling it the glamping place, the fancy Brickyard. I'm getting distracted because some people are joining us. It's just north.
Hutton. It's the Hutton Brickyards, right?
Thank you, Trail, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the Empire State Trail, the new part of it already goes through what this park is. Oh, I see. Okay, so they're redesignating an existing park area as a state park.
Well, I think there's been some certain steps to it. So at one point there was going to be a development on that land, and then Scenic Hudson was able to buy the property. And now I believe Scenic Hudson is now giving it to the state to develop it into a state park. So it's kind of had a couple iterations. So thank you for that, Malia. And I'll include some information about that as well in our notes and when I send it out. Any other announcements or communications? And then we'll go into executive session. Let's see. Oh, Freddie's putting something in the chat here. He says Westchester Medical Health and Health Alliance are hosting a film screening of Black Men in White Coats documentary going through the underrepresentation of Black men in healthcare and the impact on health equity. A panel discussion will follow the following week. If you want more information, please let me know. And it's his email, fgarcia, FGARCIA @havhv.org. I'm reading out loud for, looks like we have someone on the phone who has joined us.
Freddie, you may want to send the invitation that I got yesterday with the information to Emily, and she can pass it around.
I think I got it as well.
Yeah, that would be great. It's so great that you guys are doing that. I just need to find 80 minutes to watch the documentary. That's the problem. And Freddie, I sent it around to like our residency directors and folks in the Institute too, just so you know.
Okay, last call for announcements or communications. All right, so I'm going to have us go. Oh, I think we need to do a motion to go into executive session. Would anyone like to make a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we move into executive session.
Thank you, Troy. Ellen, do I hear a second?
I'll second that. It's Heidi back on the phone.
Oh, it's Heidi. Thank you, Heidi.
Sorry.
No worries.
What, your computer died?
Internet issues. I've lost internet.
Oh,
right here on
sorry.
Right here on the corner of Broadway. Imagine that.
Ay.
Technology. All right. All in favor to move into executive session?
Aye.
Right. Any opposition? All right. So then I'm going to stop recording